I think comparison is something I've struggled with my whole life. As a woman, we deal with comparison, especially on social media, with everything. And then currently in my life right now, I've been struggling with comparison in my walk with God because having my podcast, for example, in those moments where I'm filming an episode and I'm trying to release something of value, I think to myself, like, is anything that I'm doing that important or that great? Because what is my voice compared to our pastor's voice? There are so many people doing it so much better than me already. What do I have to add? And I just know that's the enemy. That's not true. And in the Bible, even, it says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And we are God's laborers. And it's really rebuking what the enemy is telling us in our thoughts in that moment. I'm a child of God, and I'm doing God's work and whatever he tells me to do. And the only way that I can step into that role of the purpose he has for me is by being obedient in those moments.
Welcome back to another episode of High Value Discussions. In this episode, I am honored to sit down with a devoted follower of Christ and the host of the powerful faith-driven podcast, God Will Never Fail Her. Her platform is built on trust in God's timing, obedience in seasons of uncertainty, and standing firm when life tests your faith. Through her podcast, she has created a space for honest conversations about purpose, identity, spiritual discipline, and what it truly means to surrender while still walking boldly in your calling. In a world that constantly shifts, her message is anchored in something eternal, and that is God's faithfulness. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jasmine Kurkowski.
When I was 5 years old, my dad is really good at fixing things, and anything and everything, my dad can fix it. And he was fixing someone's car from the ground up, literally from nothing into a whole car. And he went to take it on a test drive. And I remember that day. I was 5 years old, but I remember it. And I could never sit in the front seat. I mean, you shouldn't be sitting in the front seat when you're 5.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And my dad's like, okay, you can sit in the front seat. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, I get to sit in the front seat. You know, being a little kid, it's like a victory. I get to sit in the front. And last minute, we're getting in the car. Last minute, my dad's like, nope, actually, you're not going to sit in the front. And I was having a tantrum. Yeah. Like, why can't I sit in the front? Why? And I was so upset. I had a huge attitude about it. Ended up sitting in the back seat. My brother sat in the front. So we drive legitimately just 1 block away, and we're going in this main intersection, and we're crossing it. And I see this truck coming really fast. And anytime I felt like we were going to get in an accident, when we're in the car, I would close my eyes and I'd do this. And the truck came at full speed and hit us. And we got T-boned. And that's like the trajectory of a lot of things that's happened in my life. But my brother went into a coma that day for, I think it was like a month or so, or two weeks to a month that he went into a coma. My dad got sent by a helicopter to the hospital because he broke ribs and his injuries. And I went out of that with 2 scratches. And nothing was wrong. My foot got stuck in the car, and that was it. There was like this much room in the front seat. And I can't really explain it, but I just knew it was God. And I'll never forget how he protected me and what a miracle he performed in my life. And we all survived. Everyone survived, but I only came out with 2 scratches. And that's the day that I truly knew that God's real. He's real. And when people ask me, like, why do you believe in God, or that's your opinion, I'm like, No, it's a fact. Like, God's real. God's real.
Yeah.
And that's just one example, but that's the first example of how God's really moved in my life.
Yeah, especially at such a young age. So you had confidence from, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and on, right? So you just always had that walk with him. He was always at the center at a very early age, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, my parents did raise me around the idea of God, and my grandpa specifically, he's a Catholic, and he lives and breathes by the Bible and God and being religious about it. And so I've always been around it, but us going to church every Sunday and actually practicing it didn't happen until after my parents had divorced. But I always knew he existed. And then that was the moment where I knew that God was real and his hand was on me.
Obviously, you knew God at such a young age. As you started to grow into a young woman, did you ever feel like yourself kind of get away from him? Because as we get older, we get distracted.
Absolutely.
There's environments, there's people, there's places, events that almost take us away.
I would say my entire life, there's things that try to pull me away always. Doesn't matter what age you're at. You're going to be pulled away at some degree to some extent because the enemy doesn't want you to be so close and personal to the Lord, because that's where the blessing is. That's where your victory is when you're close to the Lord. So, yeah, I've been experiencing that my whole life. But, I mean, if I go back to when I was 8, when my parents got divorced, I think that I'm grateful that they got divorced. That sounds kind of intense, but I am grateful because of all the abuse that I saw growing up between each other. And there was so much toxicity in our household that it kind of created some peace after they got divorced. But I mean, even growing up from 8 until I was 18, there was a lot of drama as well because I didn't really have a relationship with my mom until I was 16 or 17. My dad kind of kept me away from my mom. My dad is an amazing human being, okay? I don't like to say anything bad about him. I like to honor my parents always. But that was a big thing to navigate, you know? But after I was 8, we got involved in church, and I thank God so much for rooting us in that church because it really helped me grow and become the person I am today. I had a lot of women around me at that church who helped grow me into the woman I've become. But something else that was really difficult for me growing up was my dad did deal with addiction, and that's something that I had to deal with as far as emotionally. When people are addicted to any substance, it affects their emotions and how they react and when they're on withdrawals and stuff. And again, my dad is an amazing human, and I think we all have our own demons. But that ended up being a huge thing for me because I had to deal with ups and downs, a lot of emotions. And I just remember I couldn't wait till I was 18 so I could move out and take care of myself. But in all those experiences in my life, God was always there and he always helped us through. We struggled a lot because my dad didn't have a lot of money and we were moving all the time into other people's homes, and we had to stay in other people's places, and it was definitely a difficult thing compared to the people that I grew up with and went to school with. But now I'm so grateful because it taught me so much about struggle and empathy and understanding for what people go through. And I feel like it just created so much character in who I've become.
When you're from Albuquerque, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I'm a podcast listener, by the way. For so I believe, did you leave at 18?
No, when I turned 18, I was on the hustle bus. I instantly went into school, started paying all my own bills, and I hustled. I'm going to make something out of myself. I'm going to figure it out because I grew up without a lot. Right? I was like, I'm going to make something of myself and I'm going to change my circumstance and my situation with God's help, right? And God created so many opportunities for me in that way. Another little miracle is because there was so much difficulty growing up, I didn't care about school. I truly didn't care about school. I didn't care about my grades, nothing. I did not care. I was just trying to grow up and get out, you know? And so when I graduated, I didn't even know you had to have a 2.5 to get like the lottery and like get assistance going to college. But I barely got a 2.5, barely. And luckily I did because it helped me go to college and get me where I am now. And that was another little God thing that I wasn't in the details of, but he was.
It's so hard to finish something when you just don't have a desire for it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like being in a relationship and you just don't desire the individual. It's like, how do you do this? You know what I'm saying? So, how did you push through within college? Was it having that desire to, I want to change the trajectory of my life? Was that the biggest aim?
I think that was the biggest aim was I just wanted something better for myself, but I don't know. Once I went to college, I loved learning. I was so excited about learning. It was like all the information that I had never put the effort to listen to in high school suddenly became the most interesting thing in my life. Like we talked about, I do like putting myself in uncomfortable situations to level up to the next person that God's calling me to be. And at that season of my life, that's what his calling was for me. And knowledge is power, right? So I just feel like I enjoyed doing it, and I knew that there was going to be a blessing on the other side of it. Everything I had to go through, paying all my own bills, working late, studying really hard, all paid off. It really did pay off in the moment. It felt like one of those things where it sucks in the moment, but there is a blessing on the other side of it. So it's just keeping your eyes fixed on the goal. God just placed things in my life that made me step out of my comfort zone. But the main reason I left home was because of my ex. And I'm so grateful for that, though, because God has, out of all of that, sent me here. And God knew that from the beginning of me traveling. So leaving home is a hard thing to do. But again, when God's calling you to do something and he has bigger plans for you, it's stepping into those uncomfortable situations. And they're just a plane ride away, a phone call away.
How often do you go visit, or do they come visit you at all? Like, man, because that's tough. I'm trying to visualize that because that's actually one of my deepest fears is my siblings going somewhere else. My
Aw.
mom disappearing somewhere else. My cousins going somewhere else. I'm like, that's crazy. To me, I'm
Aw.
like, hey guys, foundation's here.
We all here.
Nobody's
All right.
leaving.
We're all signing a contract. We're all staying. Um, yeah, I think for me too, it's partially because I love my family and I love my friends and I do miss them. But because of the weight I feel when I'm home, it's hard for me to want to be there. And I think that's part of the reason God took me out of my home environment is because I do find myself being like the anchor. I feel myself being like the glue. I feel myself being like the parent in a lot of ways. And God saw how much that was taking out of me. And it's not that we're not meant to be there for people and help them through their struggles and the demons that they have that they're battling, but it was taking so much out of me and my well-being.
I feel like you and I relate heavily on that because that's my situation. I'm always getting called. I'm always getting pulled this way and pulled that way. So it's like I don't have to just be strong for myself. It's like got to be there for my family as well. But there is a lot of weight. There is a lot of weight. And I feel like all of these moments where God puts me, they're reps. They're tests. There are moments where am I going to make the adjustment? How am I going to respond? Am I going to just choose a low road route and just be like, guys, like I got my own stuff to do, like bye? Or am I going to choose a high road route and just be fully there for them where it's their needs are always there? Like, 'cause I always got to make sure like everybody's safe. I always got to make sure everybody's taken care of. So I kind of like that weight. even though it's a lot and it's taxing and it could be emotionally and mentally draining. But I'm grateful for that because there is no greater gift that God gave me is just to be of service, is to be useful. So when I get these calls, when I get people getting pulled aside, that's me answering that call.
And you also learn a lot in those situations too, because for example, when you meet new people, most times if they create negativity in your life, you can, to a sense, draw some boundaries and like, you go that way, I'm gonna go my way. But with family, you can't do that. You can, but I just feel like it's not right. And there's so much that develops in you because you have to develop those fruits of the Spirit when you're dealing with family matters and tension. Like, am I going to practice self-control in this moment? Am I going to be patient in this moment? And I feel like your family tests you the most of any other people on this earth. And that's where you really have to practice those fruits.
Like God puts you in so many positions so you're a positive into people's life. And that's a beautiful thing because in the small period amount of time that you and I interacted, it was all positive. And it wasn't like we were like, oh my God, Jasmine, you're doing so great. Like, congrats on the podcast, this and that. And it's not like you were telling me that either, but it was just like this normal conversation in a small period amount of time. And then we had to
like
get
10 minutes.
And we had to get pulled away.
I know.
They're like, yeah, you guys are done. Chill.
Chill.
I'm like, wait.
No, it's true though. It just, I feel like the most joyful people, you don't know what they've been through and what they've had to endure to become the people they are. And it's really amazing what God can do in us when we go through hard things and what it produces in us.
Yeah. One of your episodes that I was listening to, and the title is called Comparison is the
Thief of Joy.
The thief of joy, which is true. And then I believe you said in the very beginning of our discussion that you had situations like that where there was a lot of comparisons. I'm kind of curious in what way. Was it friends? Was it family? Was it careers? Was it so on and so forth, opportunities?
I think comparison is something I've struggled with my whole life. As a woman, we deal with comparison, especially on social media, with everything. And then currently in my life right now, I've been struggling with comparison in my walk with God because having my podcast, for example, in those moments where I'm filming an episode and I'm trying to release something of value, I think to myself, like, is anything that I'm doing that important or that great? Because what is my voice compared to our pastor's voice? There are so many people doing it so much better than me already. What do I have to add? And I just know that's the enemy. That's not true. And in the Bible even, it says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And we are God's laborers. And it's really rebuking what the enemy is telling us in our thoughts in that moment. I'm a child of God, and I'm doing God's work and whatever he tells me to do. And the only way that I can step into that role of the purpose he has for me is by being obedient in those moments.
And I'm not saying this. It's so easy to just like sit beside somebody and be nice to them, but I'm genuinely being honest here. When I first reached out to you to do the podcast, and I wanted to get to know you, and first thing I did is just pretty much click play and just be in the audience. I'm like, okay, like I'm here to receive the value. I want to hear the word. I want to be educated. I want to see the fruit, and I got a lot of value out of it.
Thank you.
I really did. So I don't want you to ever feel, and you already have a grasp of that as well, that this person might be doing so much better than me, or this person has like, they're doing so great. They speak more articulate. They say the big words, etc. Like I'm the same way with me too, because I stutter a lot. I do a lot of ums and so on and so forth. Like, yeah.
You know
what I mean? Like, but like I'm being honest. I got a lot of value out of it. I really, really did. And then that's why I think I gave you a review. And I said a lot of people do podcasts, but very few people are actually called to do it. And then I think I said on the last sentence, like, don't stop passing on the fruit. Like, don't stop. And there's so many things that the enemy pulls us to. He puts us in this direction to see, like, oh my God, this person looks this way. They're saying this, they're doing this, they're doing that. And it's all him just trying to halt progress. Those are the attacks. Those are the attacks. And that's where you got to sharpen the blades, sharpen the swords, and be like, man, I'll take you on all day long.
I have to get in my word.
Yeah.
I have to fill my thoughts, with his word every time. That's the only way I can fight against it, for sure.
Yes. So what are some of the attacks that you are currently facing, not just within your podcast, but just overall life, when it comes to your walk with God, when it comes to your career, just everything? What are some of the attacks that you are currently facing that you're always going to God, leaning on him the most? Is like, Lord, you are my shield. Help me here. But also, you are my sword as well.
Wow, that's a really good question. Oh, well, I guess in a vulnerable place, just to be 100% honest, is I think the real struggle I'm dealing with right now is my single season. I think, especially in church, we see people all the time in marriage, and I think especially when you're in church, that was the goal from the beginning. That's what God created Adam and Eve, for each other. And I think being in a single season, God has been teaching me so much about myself and things that I need to work on, and being healed in that way. And we truly can learn things that we can't when we're with someone else in a relationship. So it's just trusting and having faith in what God has for me in the future, and being present, truly being present in where he has me right now. Because how am I going to learn from this season right now if I just keep looking to what's next tomorrow? There's enough worries in today.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's funny. Every time I have a guest on, I just feel like I have to prepare. So I listened to your podcast, and I was also going through your feed as well. So I saw that you had celebrated when it comes to being single for a period amount of time.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that celebratory factor of it, because I feel like you approached it not as a punishment, but you approached it as an assignment.
I had been in really long-term relationships all throughout my early adult years. From 18 to 23, I was in 2 relationships. One was 6 years, one was 3 years. And in those relationships, that's where I was seeking my fulfillment. That's where I was trying to feel complete. That's where I would run to when I feel like I was lacking. And, you just feel empty in a way, because of my childhood, it just was hard for me. It was so hard paying all my own bills and going to school and being 18 years old. That was crazy. And I used them as a crutch in a way. And when I finally became single for the first time, in 6, 7, 8, 9 years, almost 10 years, the first time being single, it was that moment where I was like, whoa, God fills me. God completes me. I am whole already with God without another person involved. And I do wish I learned that a little sooner, but obviously I had to learn in my own time. And there was things God had to teach me to fully rely on him.
Yes.
So there was a lot of learning through that.
Because I was listening again to one of your podcasts, and you were talking about the single season. And, you gave out the story how you knew God at 5 years old and on. But the individuals that you were in relationships with, they were not.
They
God bless you, brothers. I'm not.
So I truly would never say anything bad about them. I'm so grateful for those relationships, because God also knew that I needed that to a degree, right? Like, not to sustain me or complete me or make me whole, but they truly helped me become who I am today too. But it's funny, because when I was 18, my first ex of 6 years worked so hard to get me. And I just remember being like, it would never work. You don't love God. It would never work. You don't love God. And then that's those moments where God told you not to do it, and you did it. And it was like, I'll see where it goes. I'm 18. It's fine. 6 years later, like, no. You get invested, and it's those moments where the enemy works. When you give the enemy a little, he's going to take a mile. And you have to be really careful and vigilant in those moments. That is a big lesson I learned, is you can't play around. The enemy does not play around. So when you're tempted or thinking something's just this time or just for a little, it's not. It starts to take over.
It's very tough when somebody has God at the center of everything that they do, but like having a significant other, whether it be they're married or so and so in relationships, it's very tough.
I feel like truly I've always had a big calling on my life because of the things I've gone through, the way that God's so obviously shown up in my life and that I know he exists. And the enemy truly used those relationships to keep me out of my calling. But God turns around everything for his good. So look where it's taken me now. But in those moments, it did take me away from God. I strayed from God all those years. I was living in sin. And they didn't know God. So of course they were doing other things too that were not glorifying to God. And I should have never been in those situations. I used to go to EDM music festivals, and though there is nothing in those events that glorifies God at all. And yeah, just in those ways. And I was drinking and partying, and I would have never been in those situations to that degree if I wasn't in those relationships. Because when you're surrounded by people who are engulfed in that, they don't see anything wrong with it, they're going to keep bringing you in. They're going to keep pulling you in. And you think you can pull people up, but that's where the enemy gets you, is it starts to pull you down.
You're at a state now where it's like nothing can take me away from God being at the center of everything that I do. And if there's something out there, that's just part of the enemy trying to drift me away from what I truly want. So it's tough. I mean, you're a grown woman. You're very mature. So is that the standard?
100%. That was a huge lesson. The enemy will keep bringing the same temptation to you and test to you until you've learned. And after those 2 relationships, there were a few people that tried to start a relationship with me or date me that didn't love God again. And I'm not going to lie, it was hard for me to be like, no, I don't belong there. If someone doesn't love God, I will not partake in that. And now, in my dating life, it was a few months ago, a guy told me he didn't believe in God. It's not that he didn't believe. That's what they say. They're like, I believe in a higher power. Like, you don't know Jesus Christ. You have to know Jesus Christ. And in that moment, it was an instant, nope, I'm sorry. And respectfully, I can't start anything with someone who doesn't love God. So that was a lesson that has been learned. Now the enemy tries to get me in other ways because I've conquered that one. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud you for that, and I like how you have like that awareness now, because it might be a good-looking guy come out of the blue. It might spark your interest, but at the end of the day, it's like, if that's not the center, it's not going to work. There's no sustainability there.
God always has to be the center of everything. Whatever we're doing, he has to be the center.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was also curious about this. Have you ever been baptized before, when you were before redemption? Because I saw, again, with your feet, in 2024, you got baptized at redemption.
I did.
And I was curious, did you get baptized beforehand?
I got baptized as a baby in a Catholic church, but I had never been baptized as an adult. And I'm so grateful that I got baptized when I did here, because when I went through my breakup, my last one of 3 years, I actually had taken a contract in New York, and my contract got cut short. I wasn't expecting it. And this was before me and my ex broke up. I was like, I just instantly knew, oh, here we go. God's going to do something. God's going to do something. A week later, me and my ex break up. A week later. Then I go back home to New Mexico. And when you take contracts in different places, it doesn't take long to get a contract. And
Remind the audience of what you do, actually.
oh, sorry. I I work in physical therapy. I'm an assistant. I'm not a DPT, okay? I'm a PT assistant. But yeah, I was a traveler for physical therapy. So I've lived in a few places, but me and my ex had broken up, and then I went back home to New Mexico, and I had signed 4 different contracts. That's pretty unheard of. The first contract, you're gone, you go. And I was like, okay, God, you don't want me there. You don't want me there. You don't want me there. And I started to get, just a little doubtful, because in that moment, if you're not working for 6 weeks, this was 6 weeks, I had no income. Luckily, I have the greatest friends and family who took care of me, and God blessed me by being able to be home during that time, during my breakup too. So it was a really crucial time for me. And finally, a contract came up here in Burlingame, and I have never heard of Burlingame. And my recruiter was like, there's this contract, if you want to take it. I'm like, yeah, sure. My 5th contract that I'm signing. And it's so funny because I was going through my videos, because in December it'll be 2 years that I've lived here. And I recorded a video of myself being like, whatever you have for me, God, I know is going to be better than the life that I was in before. And whoa, he's blessed me tenfold. He knew what he had for me out here. I have grown so deeply in my relationship with God, and as an adult, being an adult, having a relationship with God and choosing it, not because you grew up in it, not because you're in the church, not because your parents believe it, but because you found God. And that was that moment when I moved out here. I found redemption. I started going to church every Sunday. I wasn't expecting it, but the Holy Spirit hit me like a brick wall when I went into church. And the first time I went into redemption, I was just crying my eyes out. And I love our church.
Every Sunday I'm crying.
So I'm like, I can't expect anything less. But and 2 years later now, I am serving at the church, and God's having me level up in a lot of ways and creating a lot of fellowship with other people that has changed my entire life. But it all comes down to a really private relationship with God that I have, that I'm so blessed with. Your private relationship transpires into your public relationship. So I just am so blessed that he brought me here and I was able to be baptized.
I mean, I was baptized just like you at a very, very young age. It's almost like you don't really grasp the understanding of it. And then when you're an adult, where you choose to go to church, where you choose to surrender, it is a whole different game. You are ready to walk. You're ready to eliminate that old person that you once were. It is a beautiful, beautiful feeling.
I was ready for it. And even now, the reality is we're being transformed every day. The word should be transforming you every single day. So, you may get baptized, or you may have made that choice of surrender. I believe Jesus died on the cross for my sins. But tomorrow I don't wake up and I'm like, yeah, I'm new. I am new in the spirit, but I have to die to my flesh. I have to die to the person that I was before, what I knew. I have to become what God's calling me to become. I have to be obedient in what he's called me to do. I have to follow his commandments. I truly have to take up my cross every single day. Actually, I was a traveler here in the Bay for an entire year. And once you hit a year mark, you're not considered a traveler anymore. So I had to make the decision to leave or to live here. And I never in my life really sat down and prayed, I'm waiting for your answer, God. I've never done that before. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. I'm in a place where I'm so close to God that he's going to answer me. And I fasted from food that day and really focused on God all day. And I started doing my Bible study. And it was like, boom, you're staying here. He's like, you have to stay where you're growing spiritually. And when God answered me, I am not kidding. I was like, whoa, Whoa. He never ceases to amaze me. No matter how many miracles he's performed and does for me, every time I'm like, whoa, like, I love you, God. Why are you so good to me?
How does that feel to go from like that life that you had in the past where you had a certain circle, but now you got this circle over here and it's completely different?
Again, it all comes down to God and his goodness, because I did not plan any of this, and God knew that this is what he had for me out here in the Bay. This is just another covenant that God had for me coming out here to the Bay, that he was like, you're going here and this is where you're being rooted. This is where you're going to grow in your relationship with me. And to say any of it was in my own power or my own strength is not true. God had all this for me, and he, even the people I work with, when you think of California, you do not think of Christians and God, okay? You think of the opposite, actually. And the fact that every single surrounding where I turn, at work, at church, random people I meet on the street, all people who love God, is new for me. And that's how, even more so, I know that he's so real, because he's planted me in a place where I can be in community and can grow in that way. But I feel like I had to have that season where I didn't have those surroundings to appreciate this to a whole nother level.
And you said you've been here for 2 years.
In December, yeah.
You had a foundation in Albuquerque, but it just feels like the foundation is here now.
This is like home to me now. It's so weird. I never expected San Francisco to be home for me. As someone who grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the little girl in me who had to work so hard to be where I am today would not believe this is my life. And my life is truly a reflection of how good and how amazing God has been to me.
We went from community, and I really want to talk about the podcast. When did God call you to do that?
A long time. It was a long time for me to finally be obedient to it. When I was in New Mexico, me and my best friend started a Bible study with a group of girls. And we were sitting there, me and my best friend were like, this is really great conversation, and people could benefit from this kind of discussion about God and learn with us. And in that moment, we're like, we should start a podcast. And we had a friend who had a podcast in his own studio and stuff. We even went into his studio, talked about it, talked about sharing a studio. He gave us a lot of tips. And I think the only person who truly wanted to execute it was me. And I don't know how much time had gone by, maybe like a year, maybe 2 years. I can't remember exactly, but God kept calling me to it, kept calling me to it. And then when I moved out here, I was still doing the Bible study, but we were doing it on Zoom as a group. And we were talking about mission trips and whatever God had or wanted us to do and how to share his word with other people. And I'm like, I've always wanted to do a mission trip, always wanted to do it. I think it'd be so cool, right, and transformative. But one of my friends in the Bible study was like, you don't need to go to another country or go to another place to spread God and have a mission trip. She was like, there's plenty of people in our own country who need saving. And I was like, whew, that was a deep word.
Yeah.
And it was confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. And then I've been blessed, so blessed by being able to see so many people from my past be saved and give their life to God. They message me. The last person I did an episode with that you listened to, he messaged me when he gave his life to God, because everyone knew I loved God. But the fact that they would message me, I was like, what? God blessed me and being able to see these people's lives transformed. But then that was another confirmation as a friend messaged me, and she's like, I just want you to know that you are a great follower of Christ and to keep doing what you're doing. It was this long message, and it was another confirmation where I was like, all right, God, I will make this podcast. And in making my podcast, there was a lot of dying to myself, dying to my ego, dying to my pride, not caring what other people thought about me, truly not caring. I can't fear men. I have to fear God. And I am so vulnerable on my podcast, and I'm good at being vulnerable with people, but not to a large scale. So it's interesting having so many people being able to listen to it and just kind of know my soul, you know?
I'm kind of curious on that because as the enemy tries to block us away, pull us away to another direction, what are some habits or some strategies or principles that you go to make sure that your podcast remains spirit-led and not trend-led?
That's a good question. I actually recently have been reflecting a lot on that. And I don't want any part of anything, whether it's my podcast or something else, if God isn't a part of it. God's fire needs to be in it. And I've been praying so much about my podcast. This is your platform, God. This is not my platform. It truly comes down to having a private relationship with God. That's what it comes down to. I can have my podcast, I can serve at church, I can do all these things in the public eye, but it truly comes down to your private relationship with God. I have to make sure I'm in my word. I have to make sure I'm reading it, I'm soaking it in, I'm praying about it. And then I'm praying. You have to make sure you're praying. Are you talking to God? Are you being intentional with your time with him? That was an episode I actually wanted to do that I never got the chance to because I went a different direction in my podcast. But God revealed to me that I was spending more time and intention at the gym than I was with him. And it was a huge revelation for me because in my head, I'm like, this is good for me. I'm doing something great for me. And when I really looked at it, I would cancel plans. I would do what I had to do to get my gym time in, like very strategic in my diet, everything. And then God was like, why aren't you putting that same intention into your relationship with me? Like, why am I not canceling? Like, I have a date with God right now, so I cannot hang out. Like, even when you're spending time with God, we have an addiction to our phones. Every 5-10 minutes, we're looking at our phone. Are you being intentional with God? Like, for example, this conversation with you, am I looking at my phone? No, that'd be rude. So why would I give that same to God? I have to be private and intentional with my time with him. That's the only way it's going to reflect in my life publicly.
And I'm also curious about this, the behind the scenes that people don't see.
The behind the scenes are me stressed out. I put more on my plate than I probably should. So I think in knowing what questions I want to talk about with people right now in the season I'm in, but I think it always comes down to talking to God first every time. I start with God. Everything we do should start with God. So I start everything with God. I pray for him to lead it where he wants it to go. And then he reveals something to me. He shows me something, and then I'll follow in that direction. But I think like we talked about, there's so much tedious things you have to do in creating it that you have to trust the process of it. And anything, again, we do, we're laborers for Christ. And we're building his kingdom.
Yes.
So it's that parable about talents. Are you going to multiply the talents that he's given you?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be a good steward in that way. And that's something God told me to in creating my podcast is this is just the beginning. You have a whole lifetime of doing this every day. This is a lifelong journey and process. And maybe this isn't something that's going to blow up or anything. And that's okay too. But the main thing is that I'm doing things in obedience to God. I think that's another place where I found myself comparing is, I don't I'm not making the time to make it to this level. I'm not making the time to be here where everyone else is at. And I think I'm in a stage of just praying about it, because my main devotion is just to do God's work in spreading his message, right? But in the whole production of it all, I think that I compare a lot, because I do spread my time so thin everywhere in so many different areas of my life that it would require a whole nother level of dedication, which you put a whole nother level of dedication, which is amazing.
I cannot wait to show you how easy it is.
Yeah. Teach me.
No, I'm serious. Like you would be shocked.
But you did invest,
Yeah.
to have the quality you have. And I used one microphone and it was like 150. And I'm sure all of this was, an investment.
Well, I mean, there's this guy, Lex Friedman, very well-known podcaster, and he's somebody that I look up to in this space because he does 4-hour plus podcasts, 5-hour plus podcasts. I'm like, man, I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to have a discussion with somebody that hits 5 hours, 6 hours. No bathroom breaks.
Listen to that. No bathroom breaks.
Oh, that too? Somebody told me that too recently, like, damn, your podcasts are too long. I was like, are my podcasts too long or is your attention span too low?
That's another thing that I do too, is I always think about the listener.
Yeah.
I think about the listener, and there's like a good medium. I don't know if I'll be doing 5 hours. That's like a whole shift, bro. But am I getting paid hourly? No, I'm totally kidding. But
well, anyways, my very last question for you, since we're all, we're in front of a microphone, you and I, if God placed a microphone in front of you and that microphone was able to reach the entire world, what message would you pass down to the people?
I think a lot of times we think we have to earn God's love in the way, I have to be, no, scratch that. I want to be obedient. I want to do this. I want to do that for God. But in doing those things, it doesn't make him love you more. God already loves you where you're at right now. And by me being obedient, by me following his calling and purpose on my life, is because I love him and because he's so good to me that I can't help but do those things.
But Jasmine, thank you for blessing the show. Truly, this is my third, fourth interaction with you, and this was nothing but a blessing. And I just pray that God continues to use you, because I really, truly feel like he's called you to do something, and I love and admire that you are answering that call with full confidence. So I just pray you continue this walk. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.